And this week's speaker has a passion for what makes us tick, and to be more precise, what makes us tick differently, each of us. With his focus on cognitive diversity, he puts his neuroscience knowledge to help to rewire the way we think for the better. He's a brain whisperer who's turned his own ADHD journey into a superpower, and now is helping other people do the same. He shows people how to work with the brain's natural wiring instead of fighting against it. I guess you can think of him as part neuroscience nerd in a good way, part brain coach and part TEDx speaker who's been there and done that when it comes to the whole entrepreneurship roller coaster. And after getting trained by top cognitive performance experts at King's College in London, he's understood how our ancient brain software can actually thrive in today's world. Today, he's going to show us and maybe even demonstrate how the brain drives entrepreneurial action. And with that, we welcome to the stage, David Amor.
Hello. Wow, what a lovely welcome. Thank you. So yeah, this is going to be a little bit different to your usual Zoom meetings and calls. I have this beautiful electronic whiteboard, which I'm going to be using with you today. And if I could ask your permission to give you a pro tip, the more engaged you are with me, the more immersed you are, the more present, the longer lasting the effects of this workshop will have on you. It's going to be a powerful one. It's going to be really exciting. And since there's not that many of us, I'm actually going to ask you guys to engage with me, because then I can cater more to your needs, to what you're looking for in your entrepreneurial journey. And then I will give you the neuroscience behind that and how we can drive action every time. So to begin with, I guess I have a question for you guys. And that question is, how many of you struggle with procrastination? And if you do, put your hand up, because I definitely do. Yeah, and it can get in the way of our entrepreneurial success. I put off procrastinating. Yeah, so that in itself is a paradox. I love it. So the most important question that I have for you today is, why do we have this magnificent organ in the first place? Why do we have a brain? What is the purpose? And here, this is when I ask you to just unmute, communicate, and talk to me.
To respond with our world through our senses.
Okay, respond with senses. Good. What else?
Survival.
Survival. Could you tell me a little bit more as to why you said survival?
Well, from my point of view, I think the brain has evolved because we're a moving organism. We had to survive, becoming prey and also finding prey.
Good, good. What else? Find calories to survive. I like that.
Making decisions.
Making decisions, yes.
Progression, evolution.
Yeah, evolution. I'm going to put energy for the calories, food.
Our brain is our CEO.
Yes.
Of the body.
CEO of the body. Okay. Now, all of these functions, there's so many different things that the brain can do, but it all leads to one thing, and that is completely correct. That is survival. The sole purpose of the brain is to delay death, to keep you alive. Okay. Now, unfortunately, the brain has hardly changed in the last thousands of years. It's still actually very similar to what it was to our ancestors, the hunters and the gatherers. So what that means is that society has evolved rapidly, and our brain hasn't caught up to the extreme stimulation, the technology, the advancements in architecture, and everything around us. And we need to figure out a way to go from a survival mode which is where our brain is currently at, into a thriving mode, okay? And this is what I'm going to talk about today. Okay, now, what does the brain actually produce? What do we do every single day, every single second as humans? What happens in here?
Thoughts.
Yes, thoughts. Okay. So I'm going to mention why we have thoughts. Actually, why do we have thoughts? Does anyone know?
So we can make the best quality decisions based on the stimuli that we're surrounded by.
Okay, anything else?
To survive.
To survive, yes, yes, to survive. So if you always say survival, you're always going to be correct. It always leads to survival. Yeah, say that again, sorry.
To take the best action for survival and reproduction and, to grow.
Okay, that's actually really good. I'm going to talk about that. Action. Okay. Our thoughts will eventually lead to action, but there's one missing piece. There's one missing piece between our thoughts and our action. What do you think that could be?
Feelings.
Feelings.
Yes, feelings, emotions, okay? Emotions. Right, so our thoughts are designed to trigger an emotion within us, okay? Now, this emotion will then cause us to go into action. Is it always action though? Do our emotions always cause us to go into action?
Yeah, and inaction is also an action.
Fair enough, fair enough. Inaction, correct. Okay, so I'm going to show you this cycle. Our thoughts will trigger an emotion, which will then trigger an action, which could be inaction. Now, if we think about survival, what percentage of our thoughts on average do you think are actually negative?
Majority.
You have to define what is negative.
Just something negative that isn't positive.
What did you say, James?
Unhelpful. Not
Unhealth. Yeah, yeah. Well, negative thoughts in terms of survival, how could a negative thought actually help survival?
Don't do this, don't do that. It's danger.
Yeah.
It's the old away from strategy, isn't it?
Don't eat
Yeah.
yellow snow.
Don't.
It can protect you.
It's protective, yes.
I think both our positive and our negative thoughts are good. It just depends on anything. It's moderation. It's, how many of each do we have? And
Yeah,
what
that's
does it stop us, and what does it impede us or stop us doing that we could be doing?
That's great. It is moderation. But on average, a normal, natural human brain, what is the percentage of negative thoughts?
90%.
70.
90.
Okay, it's 70 to 80%, depending on the study. So,
Hang on a moment.
But-
Oh no, it isn't. Sorry. Sorry. I'm sorry.
so
Sorry.
80% of the time, we're going to be thinking negatively. But that is actually natural. That is what the brain is designed to do. Why is the brain designed to focus on negative stimuli? To keep us alive. The brain is negatively biased, correct? And so if 70% of the time we're feeling this negative emotion, thought, what's going to happen to our emotions? It's also going to be negative. And what are examples of our negative emotions that we might feel on our entrepreneurial journey?
Insecure.
Insecure, okay.
Don't do that, it will harm you.
Yeah, and what's the feeling behind that?
Procrastination.
Ow.
Procrastination. So procrastination is an inaction,
Mm-hmm.
but it happens as a result to what emotion? Fear. Fear. Someone said fear. Yes. Okay, now fear is a very powerful emotion in the brain. In fact, there's a particular part in the brain, which I'm going to show you now. It's right here. It's tiny, this little pea-sized shape. It's called the amygdala, okay? Don't worry too much about the names. I actually call this structure of the brain Amy G, so that people remember her, Amy G, okay? And now she has a priority systems of how to process emotions, okay? So she is the emotional powerhouse. She is the control center of how we deal with emotions. Now, what do you think is the most valuable emotion to Amy G? What is the most important emotion?
Fear.
Fear. Fear will always be prioritized. So we might be excited, we might be happy, we might have an intention of doing something. But if fear is present, and if it's a high level, it will take over and it will find ways to sabotage your journey. And that is what procrastination is. It's an element of unconscious fear of thinking that we might not be capable, that we're not good enough, that we might fail, we might not get the results that we need, okay? Now, these thoughts are actually very natural, okay? We shouldn't judge the way the brain thinks, but we can challenge it, okay? Does the brain define who we are?
No,
No.
no,
What makes you think that?
because you can control your mind.
You can control your mind?
Speak for
Okay, I
yourself.
like that. Sorry, say that again.
I said, speak for yourself.
Speak for yourself. Yeah. Does the brain define us? It doesn't. It's just an organ trying to protect us. It's just an organ designed for survival. So we do need to challenge it. And our brain is neuroplastic. We can change the wiring. We can rewire our thoughts to be more empowering. Okay. So what happens after taking action or not taking action? What is the next step?
To notice when your brain does the thing that it does, just be aware of it so you can take the right action.
Okay, to be aware of it. Yeah, that's...
Can you ask the question again?
Yeah, so what happens after taking action or not taking action? What is actually the next step in this cycle?
Reassess the danger again.
Okay, yeah.
Review feedback. The brain will review and feedback and tell you what to do.
That's good. That's good. So we're going to get a response. We're going to get a result from the environment. Something is going to happen around us because we do something and then we learn from that experience. Okay. But what happens if we're not doing anything? If we're not engaging with proactivity and constantly seeking action and results?
We stay where we are.
We stay where we are and there's a lack of results.
Yep.
Okay. And if there's a lack of results, that increases
anxiety,
uncertainty, and it actually makes us feel even more stuck when we avoid things or we tend to not do something because we feel this friction. Okay. Means less results, and the brain hates a high level of uncertainty, because if there's a level of uncertainty, it means we're stepping out our comfort zone. If we step out the comfort zone, what does that scream to the brain? What happens if we're stepping out our comfort zone?
Danger. You could die.
Fear,
Yeah.
more fear.
More fear, danger, you could die. And that's actually,
What a rush.
that's actually a good statement. Like, the brain does not know the difference between an actual threat to life and a perceived threat. So, for example, if you're late to a meeting, you're gonna be late, and your boss, or you are your own boss, most of you, but there's an element of danger to your brain. There's this threat and you feel anxious, you feel this stress. The brain goes into a survival response naturally, whether your life is actually in danger or not. It doesn't know the difference. Consciously, we might logically know, but unconsciously, the brain doesn't know. Okay, so comfort zone. If we step out, that means a level of uncertainty. But what does it mean when we also step out the comfort zone? Why does that benefit us?
The chance to learn, to get new experiences, and even outdo the competition as well.
It can be exciting as well.
Yeah, yeah.
It's progress, where progress happens.
Yes, and let me talk about exciting. That's actually a good one. Not many people say that answer, but the brain loves novelty. The brain actually likes new things. It finds it exciting because if we're talking about evolution, let's say you found a banana tree, okay, and you're constantly eating this banana every single day. Eventually, what happens to your dopamine levels, at first they spike because it's like, oh my God, banana tree, yes, this is exciting. But then over time, it becomes very repetitive and our dopamine level goes down. Now, there's a survival advantage to this because the brain is telling you, you need to vary your diet. This banana tree isn't enough. You need to find a new bush, a new berry, or a new something to vary your diet to survive. So when we're doing the same thing all the time, or if we're at home in our rooms trying to do work, like a lot of us do, the brain actually physically can shut down. It doesn't feel excitement.
Can I ask a question before you move?
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Go
just now
ahead.
you're saying that the brain doesn't like new things or whatever. You feel threatened, right? But now you're saying the brain likes novelty. How do you explain that?
Okay, so there's uncertainty, which could mean an element of threats around you. Okay, but when we're doing the same thing all the time, or our surrounding or environment is very stable, the brain will shut down to conserve energy because it feels like there's not enough resources around it. If I give you an example, think of your ancestors thousands of years ago. Think of an ancestor walking in the desert, okay? And the territory around this ancestor is completely barren. There's nothing going on. There's no resources, there's no food, there's no water, there's nothing. It's boring. There's no stimulation, okay? In this environment where we're not nurturing the brain, it completely shuts down as a way to conserve energy in case you can't find food for another week. Okay, so when we introduce novel things that don't feel dangerous, the brain is like, oh my God, this is exciting. But there's always going to be an element of uncertainty as well. So there is a twofold feeling of fear and excitement. And you often hear that you can feel these emotions together. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, I think so. Thanks.
You're welcome. So we need to introduce a level of novelty as well to keep that excitement going. One of the best ways to do that, if you feel not that productive at home, get out, go to a co-working space, go to your favorite cafe, reward yourself with a stimulating environment that serves you, because some people might not want to go to a place where there's too many distractions, right? Or too many noises. That's completely fine. So go to a quiet corner in a library or find the place that works best for your brain, okay? For example, I have an ADHD brain, and the best thing that works for me is going to a stimulating co-working space where I could put my noise cancellation headset and go with a group of people where we co-work together. In fact, one of the individuals in the call, Lara, we're going to do that tomorrow. So that's one way to increase your productivity and to increase that novelty in your brain, that refreshed energy of, I actually want to do work. But if you're stuck in your room the brain's going to shut down. It's going to be like, hey, I don't understand. There's no stimulation around me. Or it's going to get distracted. It's going to look for stimulation like your phone, technology, social media, all of these other things. Okay. Any questions on that?
Gareth has a question, I think.
Yes.
Like you, I'm neurospicy, but
love it.
But I'm ASD heavily.
Sure.
And dyspraxic.
Yes.
So I don't like any of these things. In fact, the idea of going into a place full of people with lots of stuff going on actually makes me feel queasy. I like the comfort of my tiny little room with all my favorite things in it, and I can eat the same thing 12 days in a row with no issues whatsoever. So
yeah,
you know, and my wife is ADHD. So she's forever trying to challenge me to get me to try new things and the rest of it. But I find a quiet comfort in having things set up, and I love sitting in front of my computer video editing. That makes me feel very happy. So the trouble is, the things you're saying fit a portion of humanity, but I don't know. I mean, James, what's your thought about this? He and I talk a lot about this sort of topic.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said, because the idea of going into a busy environment, that freaks me out as well. But I also understand where David's coming from, and I understand the science of boredom and all that, but everyone's different. So I think we need to understand that, like, yeah, everyone's different, and what works for one is not going to work for someone else. So we just need to bear that in mind as well.
Completely. And this is where I suggest experiment, right? If your room is comfortable and you're being productive and that's already working, then you don't need to change it, right? Everyone has a different approach. Everyone has a different brain, completely. But this is also, it's the comfort zone of the brain, right? If we're stimulated by other things, yes, I understand neurodiversity. I've studied it a lot. And that comfort zone can serve your senses. You won't get overloaded. So that works for you, right? But as long as the environment for you feels like refreshing and it feels like you can do your work and you can focus, then amazing, right? Because I can also get distracted if there's too many things going on around me. So I can't go to a busy cafe. I always go to a peaceful co-working space. But some people need that extra stimulation. Some people need that busyness and to have accountability all around them. So what I'm saying is find your setting that works for you. But I'm just telling you that evolutionary speaking, this is how brains have evolved. And yes, brains are also different.
Is that me? Yeah, no, my daughter's got ADHD. And what I find is that whole kind of comfort zone thing is a bit interesting, because what blocks her is her fear. So she'll think that's a good idea, but then she'll be like, oh no, but this could happen. And then 6 weeks on, this could happen. And you're like, oh, so I'm just not going to do it. So I wonder if you had any views on that, because the intention is there, but the fear then kind of comes and derails the whole intention.
Yeah, completely understand. And you know, I was there for many years where ADHD for me was actually quite limiting because I didn't really understand how to work with it. But now that I do, well, I'm going to give you an example of that level of uncertainty and feeling that fear. There's two types of individuals. Now, this is a very generalist definition that I'm about to give you. But here's your level of success, okay? And then we have person A and person B. Now, person A will achieve this level of success, and person B will achieve this level of success. Now, there's a common characteristic difference between these two individuals. What do you think that trait difference could be?
Motivation.
Motivation. I mean, person A can have lots of motivation too. They could have the intention.
It's a fear.
Taking Taking action and fear. Yes. How can we combine those two? Okay. Person B will embrace failure. Okay, they understand that failure and fear is part of the process. And they constantly enter the zone of failure. Okay, so they are constantly expanding their comfort zone. The more you step out the comfort zone, okay, the more results you produce, the more uncertainty there is. But over time, you can expand your comfort zone and you can do more things. You can take more action. Okay, so this is the main difference. Now, who do you think person A could be?
Anxious.
Could be anxious, but person B is also anxious. But they use that as their compass. Fear is not something we need to avoid always. Okay, this is what the brain has designed to do, but we no longer live in a world where we're surrounded by lions trying to hunt us or whatever. We live in a world where we have to thrive. Okay, there's other elements that we need to focus on that aren't just survival. So person A usually will have perfectionist characteristics. Why? Because if they avoid failure, which is the key characteristic of a perfectionist, they fear failure, so they won't even attempt to fail. So they stay stuck. They stay stuck with the same level of safe results because safety is an evolutionary advantage. But you are not defined by your brain. Okay, I'm not defined by my ADHD. I've redefined what ADHD means to me, and I use it in a way that it empowers me. It's my strength. Okay, so use fear as your compass. If this doesn't feel right, if something is, I'm not sure I should do this, maybe you should do it. There's no such thing as wins and losses. It's wins and lessons. We learn, we grow. We constantly expand that comfort zone. Okay, any questions on that?
I would just say it's the growth versus fixed mindset.
Yeah, that's a good insight. Yeah, it's developing that growth mindset and knowing that our intelligence isn't stuck, isn't the same level. Our ability to do things isn't always the same thing. Okay, we can overcome that. We can train the brain. The brain is neuroplastic. We can create new neural wirings. And yes, there are different brains that might need to work in a different way. For example, I will tell you for ADHD, I have a very active default mode network. So this is a part of the brain that loves to overthink, okay? So it's very active. Now, if I don't understand this, I could ruminate. I could get stuck in my negative thoughts. I could kind of believe my thoughts a lot of the time. And that could make me feel stuck and kind of paralyzed with analysis, right? I can analyze all the results. Is this going to work? Is that going to work? Is this going to work? And then I get so drained that I end up procrastinating it because I'm too overwhelmed and I can't do it. But what's the strength of having an active default mode network is that I'm extremely creative. And if I channel my thoughts into ways that help me innovate, that help me visualize my future, that help me create powerful goals, I can be very visionary. And that's why my goal is to redefine brains around the whole world. I want people to realize their true potential. And I do that because I have an active default mode network. And that's one of my ADHD strengths.
David?
Yes.
What if you're very, there's a lot going on and you're a creator and you create different things and you've got a lot to do and it can be quite overwhelming and that gets you to procrastinate, which you don't want to do. You just want to go into action. What are some tips and tricks?
So firstly, the question is, what is causing you to be overwhelmed? Is it the variety, like too many things, doing too many things, or?
Lots of things are on the important list of having to get done.
Okay. Well, the brain, firstly, is designed for singular focus, but we constantly get dopamine hits from having like lots of to-dos, lots of things. And so we constantly add things to the to-dos because it makes us feel better and it kind of gives us a little dopamine hit. But actually prioritize with singular focus. So really set yourself a timer or an objective that is very clear and defined, and just put everything else to the side. So do one thing at a time. That means not 100 tabs open, because I've done that multiple times.
Are you looking at my computer?
Don't worry, me too as well, even today. So one thing at a time is the best way for your brain to just be like, okay, I'm going to do this. Now, this is how we enter a focus state, because right now it sounds like you feel overwhelmed, so you can't focus. It's actually important to realize that struggle is good. When you start a task and you feel like you can't do it, and it's just so hard, and your brain is like, how am I going to focus on this? Sit with that emotion. Don't avoid that emotion, because what tends to happen, we go on our phone or we try to get some sort of distraction or open a new tab to kind of avoid this struggle. Sit in that pain. Sit in that pain. And then what happens in 20 minutes, your body will start to release neurochemicals that will allow you to feel better and to feel good. You overcome that challenge and it becomes sort of like a snowball and it creates momentum. So stick without being distracted for 20 minutes. Focus on one thing and focus on that priority. And if you get distracted, if a distraction comes up, because it will happen, this isn't something that you can naturally do straight away. If a distraction comes up, just write it down quickly on paper. Write it down on a distraction sheet so it's out of your brain. Your brain is like, okay, I can let go of this, back to the main task, rather than following the distraction and be like, oh, I've got to do that now, or I've got to do that, I've got to do that, I've got to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think what we do is I meet entrepreneurs all around the world, and I think most of us are either ADHD or on the cusp of ADHD, and the having a lot of tabs up is quite normal for entrepreneurs around the world. It's
very normal. Yeah.
And we love to create. We love to create different things, and we like to work on different things. So I like we really need to focus on the one thing and then go to the next and then go to the next. So yeah, prioritizing time, I think, and allocating time to focus on different things, or actually allocating time to focus on one thing at a time.
Yeah. And kind of having that plan and clear goal allows your brain to have a level of certainty. If we start the day without a clear goal or clear focus of what we're going to do, we're going to procrastinate. Our productivity is going to be tanked because there's a level of uncertainty. The brain is like, oh, I'm not really sure what I need to do today. So I need to make decisions, and making decisions creates energy, reduces your cognitive energy. So eventually you end up kind of being stuck and not doing as much as you could have. So really have that powerful intention. Yeah. So that's pretty much me done. There's only so much I can give in this limited amount of time. If you do have more questions, or you want to understand your brain better, a neurospicy brain, I love to work with neurospicy brains. I do have a calendar link where we could just talk for a bit more. I have limited spaces where it's completely free. And it's essentially a brain strategy call where you get to learn more about your brain and how to have that entrepreneurial action.